So it's been quite some time since I've made a top 5 video on the channel. I honestly can't remember the last time I did a top 5 video on the channel. That's why I said it's been quite some time, because even me myself can't really remember the last time we made a video discussing a top 5. But today I wanted to make a top 5 video discussing my favorite slashers when it comes to the horror movies I watched. And keep in mind, there's a lot of slashers out there that I could have chose from. But these 5 slashers in general mean a lot to me because I follow their films and I'm very invested in their franchises. And I wanted to make this big video just discussing my thoughts on each of these slashers and explaining why I happen to be a really big fan of them. So I really do hope you guys enjoy this video. And as always, if you guys want to let me know your favorite slashers, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below, because I would love to see if we have the same top 5 or not. It'll be really cool to see what your top 5 favorite slashers are as well in the comments. So the first slasher that I do want to talk about in this video, and I honestly just want to talk about this slasher first because there's a lot that I can say about this character, and that is Jason Voorhees. Like, I love Jason Voorhees so much. He is easily tied with Chucky when it comes to my #1 spot. I just love the whole premise of the Friday the 13th films. I love the whole aesthetic of Jason. I think he's a very cool looking character. He has the iconic hockey mask. He has the iconic machete. You just follow Jason throughout each of these films when he's hunting down his victims. He has all these different kinds of creative kills when he comes across his victims. And Jason also has a very interesting backstory when you get some insight on his character, learning how he was harassed as a kid and he ended up drowning, and his mother went on a revenge tour pretty much where she went after every counselor like you guys saw in the first film, where she was hunting each of those down to get revenge on what they did to her son because they weren't watching him and they weren't being responsible. Because a lot of these teenagers that you guys see in these Friday the 13th films, they're just fooling around, they're just goofing off, doing whatever, partying all the time, so they're not really paying attention of their surroundings at all. So you can understand why Familia Voorhees feels the way she does because of what happened to her son. But just Jason as a whole is just a very interesting character. You see him start off as a human, but then in the 4th movie you see him die, but then he comes back in the 6th movie and he pretty much is like a superhuman zombie. He's indestructible, he's very hard to keep down, and he's just a very cool character. There's so much that I can say about Jason. And honestly, my favorite Jason movie happens to be Jason Lives, which I'll make a video talking about that movie as a whole in the near future. But the Friday films are very good, and Jason's definitely one of the most iconic slashers of all time. So why wouldn't I have Jason on this list? And I also had the opportunity to meet Kane Hodder as well, which was honestly one of the highlights that happened last year when I went to CT Horror Fest 2023, and I waited in that line for maybe about an hour and a half or so just to meet him. It was very fun to meet him, talk to him, get his autograph, and get a picture. It was a very fun experience. So as I said, why wouldn't Jason be on this list? Because he is a very iconic slasher when it comes to all these different kinds of horror films. And I might as well bring up Chucky because they did reference him when I was talking about who's tied for my #1 spot. But yeah, Chucky is definitely on this list because I have a long history with Chucky, because Chucky is the reason why I got into horror films to begin with, because it was actually the very first franchise that introduced me to the whole world of horror, thanks to my father, that showed me Bride of Chucky for the first time. And then from there I watched the original Child's Play movies 1, 2, and 3. Then I watched Bride of Chucky again, Seed of Chucky, then Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, and then obviously I'm up to date with the TV show. So I'm very invested in the series. I love each and every single one of those characters. My 2 favorite characters throughout Chucky probably has to be Chucky himself and Tiffany. Those are definitely my favorites. But I mainly just like Chucky because of his personality, because Chucky just has that sarcastic personality, and I just love that about him. Because when you see Chucky throughout each of these movies, he's very sarcastic, the way that he approaches people, and he's not afraid to express what's on his mind. And I always loved characters like that, where they have that personality that always makes you laugh whenever they're cracking jokes or they're being very serious. It's just very interesting to see how Chucky operates in each of these movies. my favorite film probably has to be Child's Play 2. That is definitely an iconic film, which I probably will make a video talking about that in the future. But Chucky, just based on his whole personality alone, is why I really like his character. And also, you know, getting the insight on his character throughout each of the films, especially in Curse of Chucky, when you learn about his connection with Nika and the whole family itself, and how it ties into the beginning of Child's Play, where you see him running away from the cops. So that was actually a very interesting direction that they decided to take the whole franchise when it came to like getting more insight on Chucky and how everything came to be. But yeah, Chucky is definitely one of my favorite characters, so he is definitely going to be on this number 2 spot. The third one probably has to be Freddy Krueger, because Freddy Krueger is a character that I got introduced to by my mother. She happens to be a very big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and I happen to be a really big fan of that franchise as well. And I think the main reason why I love Freddy Krueger so much is, again, he has a very sarcastic personality, similar to Chucky, always cracking jokes every so often. But at the same time, you know, Freddy can get very serious. He can get pretty terrifying. And I really like Freddy just mainly because I think the Nightmare on Elm Street movies are very unique, because throughout like each of these other slasher films, you just see like a guy walking around with a mask, going around killing people. But in the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, yes, you still see Freddy Krueger killing people, but at the same time, you see it being like creative in a way where it's like he's taking control of these people when they're dreaming. Like, that's how he gets access to them, and that's how he's able to torment all of these people. That's why you saw Nancy in the very first film. She had to like drink a whole bunch of coffee in order to stay up, so she could eventually come up with a plan to stop Freddy, because once Freddy is in his domain, he's pretty much all over the place. He's hard to stop. And it was very interesting to see like all of these different kinds of concepts that Freddy came up with without each of these films, like you saw in Dream Warriors, when it came to like all these different kinds of concepts that he came up with in that film. It's just very interesting to see how Freddy operates as a character, and I just really love him because of that, because he's just very creative, he's very smart, and he's just somebody that's hard not to love. So Freddy Krueger, definitely going to be in that number 3 spot. And then number 4, keep in mind, I'm not degrading Michael Myers when I put him at this spot, because I love each and every single one of these characters equally. This is just me discussing my top 5 overall. But yes, Michael Myers is on this spot because just like Jason, they're both very silent, so it's really hard to predict what either of them are going to do, which is why I always wanted a Michael Myers versus Jason film, because I would be very interested to see exactly how that fight between Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers would be. They're just both silent, so it'd be really hard to predict what sort of action they would take next. But I like Michael Myers because he's a very mysterious character. He's hard to read. But like I mentioned not that long ago, he's very silent, and usually people say, you know, you got to watch out for the people that are silent, and Michael Myers is definitely one of them, because when he's like going around and he's sneaking up behind you and he's grabbing you in order for him to get a hold of his victims, Michael Myers is honestly not afraid to do anything. Like, he is like very vicious. Like, when he gets his hands on somebody, he does not let go. He just keeps going and going and going and going. Like, Michael Myers is a hard person to get rid of, which is why, you know, he's had numerous movies where he kept coming back over and over again. If it was Laurie Strode, if it was his niece, if it was other people that were in his way, Michael Myers never gave up, and he always went after each and every single one of his victims. And when he had his eyes on somebody like his niece and like Laurie Strode, he did not give up after all. He kept going after them, and he just had like this drive inside of him where he just didn't want to give up until he got the job done. And that's the main reason why I love the Halloween movies. I just like the silent but deadly characters, which is why I reference into Jason, because they're very similar in personality when it comes to them being very hard to predict in their movies when it comes to the kind of actions they make in their films. And lastly, the character that I want to end off this video with is Ghostface. And I love Ghostface, and the best thing about Ghostface is that there's actually numerous Ghostface. So it's not just like the same killer all the time. It's actually a different person every time, which is why I really like the Scream series, because it's very unique. It changed the mold when it came to the horror genre. within those Scream movies, they're self-aware because of everything that happened in other horror movies, like all the tropes that you usually see, like people fooling around, people going off in the woods, or just those typical tropes that you guys see in horror films. Like, they're very self-aware of it. They try to prepare themselves so they don't go down the same direction like we saw in those horror films, which is why it's always brought up all the time, which is why, you know, the first movie referenced a lot of those tropes that we grew up in, especially like during the 80s, when a lot of those slasher movies are very popular around that time. It was always self-aware, and it was interesting to see, like, you know, the different motivations that each person that portrayed Ghostface took, like we saw in the first movie, in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and more than likely we'll see that again in the seventh movie, which is supposed to be filming in the summer. So that's why I mainly like Ghostface. It's just a very mysterious character, always different every single time. So it's very interesting to see how the portrayal of the character is in each Scream movie that is released. And I also really like the opening in the original Scream movie, and when we got introduced to Ghostface for the very first time, where he was on the phone asking what your favorite scary movie is. And you got to be very careful with the way that you answer these questions around Ghostface, because if you choose the wrong answer because he likes to give trivia, you got to prepare for what's going to be happening next. Like, if you get that question wrong, you're in for a rude awakening. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, Ghostface definitely deserves to be on this list. And it's hard not to mention the Scream series because, like I mentioned earlier, it broke the mold for a lot of these horror films, and I wanted to add it on this list and expressing my love for it because it definitely deserves a spot for being on my top 5. But other than that, that's honestly all I have to really say in this video. I just wanted to make this video discussing my top 5 favorite slashers because it's been a video that I've been wanting to make for quite some time, and I wanted to express my love for each of these slashers so you guys get to know me a little bit better. So I'm really curious to hear you guys' thoughts on how you guys feel about Jason and Freddy and Michael Myers and Ghostface and Chucky. You should let me know all your thoughts on them in the comment section down below. And if you guys have your own top 5 favorite slashers that you guys want to share with me in the comments, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. I would absolutely love to hear it. But if you guys enjoy this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. And if you guys want to follow me on social media, be sure to check out my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, and my TikTok. It is all located in the description below. Be sure to click on that bell for notifications so you guys are notified whenever I upload a new video. But other than that, I hope you guys are having a fantastic day, wherever the day may be. If it's the daytime, the nighttime, or the evening. And I'll see you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.